Sometimes when I come to these places, I never know where I'm going to go, what I'm going to do, what I'm going to say. So today, I might be your ER in the wave. Because what I want to do today is not as much stimulate you, but make you think. I want to make you think. I want to make you look inside. I want to make you open up another door, another window inside of yourself. I want you to be able to understand the power of what you do and to be willing to work with that power. That's a pediatric cranium. That is the one time in that first year of life that you're going to be able to affect the nervous system throughout its rest of its life. That is the time you're going to build the baseline for how that person is going to react, interact, and be in the world for the rest of their life. That system is pliable, that system is mobile, that system is growing faster than any other time in its life. This is what we're dealing with as of last year, and those numbers are changed. 1 in 6 children has a developmental disability. 54% of the children on our planet, in our country alone, are sick. And that's the numbers that we get. Imagine the numbers that are real. This is what you're up against. This is what you need to deal with. This is what you need to change. So you practice. And practicing is not easy. I know, I've been in practice 38 years. It has its ups and downs. Being a chiropractor means you're always left of center, no matter what your political, religious, or social belief is. You're left of center. So you build a practice, and ideally, you build a practice that's strong, that's healthy. And it's a triangle. It's a very strong state in nature. We have a philosophy, we have our art, and we're science. We heard about philosophy, we heard about science. I want to talk a little about art and its role in the triad. Look at these questions. For every one of us, we have a different strength. For every one of us, we have a different capacity to communicate, to express who we are, to be who we are, to perform what we want to do. But look at these questions. And look at the third one. How would you choose who to adjust or who you want your family to adjust if you were a consumer? What would motivate you the most? What would make you travel 2.5 hours to get an adjustment? What would make you drag 4 kids screaming into an office who want to play volleyball or dance or basketball or just don't like that guy or woman? What would make you change that? Which piece of the triad, once you actually mastered it, would allow your practice to flow and grow forever? Your practice trajectory, your vision, your dream of what you want to do, how you want to make it, your practice trajectory is set up by your philosophy and your ability to spread that philosophy, to communicate, as the last speaker just said, to communicate to a patient on their level. That is your practice trajectory. But the linchpin that can bring it all down is if you can't promise what you say you promise. Now, you heard miracle stories. You heard people tell you, I adjusted babies who were paralyzed. That changed my life. I saw people who could not see, could not hear, to change your life. That is not the day-to-day practice. That is not what you see in your practice on a day-to-day basis. That is what changes your life. So I'm going to tell you the story that changed my life. 1986, I was in Massachusetts, about my 4th year in practice. And this patient of mine named Mark came in, and he told me, he said, I have HIV. I just got diagnosed with HIV. And he said, will you still take care of me? Now, back in the 80s, HIV was rampant, and it was endemic in our society. But I, as a chiropractor, just said, sure. There was no question about it. I don't care what you have. I will take care of you. I started taking care of him. About 3 weeks into care, he said, my partner, Joe, has AIDS. Will you take care of him? Sure. So Jay came in. He weighed, at that time, around 86 pounds. He had Kaposi sarcomas all over his body. He was basically a figment of a human being. I did my evaluation. I actually gave him a report of findings back then. Didn't make him commit to 2 years of care. I adjusted him once, and the next week I got a call from Mark, and he said, Joe's been in the hospital for the last 6 days. Will you come take a look at him? I'm like, all right. I go to the hospital, and Mark and his friends are there, and Joe is lying in this bed with tubes hooked up to him. He's now weighing 86 pounds. He's obviously suffering. All the monitors are showing that he's dying, but it's been 5 days and they're not changing, and Joe is hanging on by a thread. So Mark says, will you adjust him? I'm like, oh, shit. So I crawl around to the back of the bed, and these 5 guys grab the bed and pull it forward so I can get behind all the instruments. And I palpate Joe's neck, which was pretty much all that left of Joe, and I adjusted him. And his atlas exploded. You know, one of those adjustments like hearing 2 2x4s hit together? And Joe died at that instant. And after I finished drying my pants and realizing that this could be the end of my career, all 5 of Joe's friends hugged me and thanked me, because what I didn't realize and what they realized is that Joe was unable to let go for whatever reason, whatever his educated internal mechanism was that was making him hold on, but he needed to leave. And when I adjusted his atlas, an innate took over and knew that the only thing left for Joe to do was to move forward and move on, and he did. And that changed my life because I understood 2 things. The art of chiropractic, when applied correctly, will do what it needs to do. And if you have the art, science, and philosophy in a triad that's strong enough, people will understand what you do, listen to you, and be self-motivated to come into your practice. You can push that marketing philosophy, and you all have to do that, and you've done it. And these days it's worse than it's ever been with the internet and texting and all that, and emails. If we push, you could push it as hard as you want. And if you want to keep pushing that, then your triangle will look like that unless you do this. Unless you bring your art up to that level. You need to bring your art up to the level that matches your philosophy and the science behind it. So I've given you 3 things to look at. You now have some knowledge. Your knowledge is based on your moral compass and leads you to a certain level of responsibility. You know what chiropractic can do. You know what it is supposed to do. Now you need to know what you have to do to make that come true. It is your responsibility to take action, and the effectiveness of the process is based on your level of commitment to the task. And that commitment is the amount of energy you're willing to put or commit to the process. There are 4 things that you need to do to make a paradigm shift. You need objectivity. You need honesty about your current state. You need impetus or window into another model, and you need a willingness to make changes. You need to suffer a little. You have to understand that once you embrace the idea that you and only you are the driving force in shaping and creating the practice that you want, there are several steps and tools that can be useful to this. You want to determine what your practice paradigm is. Where is the weakest link? Where is that weakest link? That's what you want to determine. If you look down on the 4th one, you want to determine what's the linchpin, what changes your practice. For many, many, many chiropractors, it is the art. For some reason, I find that chiropractors are afraid of their frontal lobe. And when I look at it, I go, wait. We talk about primal reflexes. We talk about acting in fear or flight. We talk about acting out of reactivity. That's people who can't access their frontal lobe. That's the fight or flight state. Chiropractors, if you access your frontal lobe, it won't hurt you. It will love you. It will support you. And guess what? It'll go away when you don't need it anymore. It'll let you do what Dr. Hudson talked about. It'll let you perform at your best. So look at your practice. See what motivates your actions. And I know that you're looking at this and we look at it and go, ego, bad thing. Growth, oh, greedy. Spiritual, love everyone. Bullshit. We all play in this arena. We all look in this arena. We all play here. And what I want you to do is look at that and not judge where you're at. Because do not worry, if you're a chiropractor, other chiropractors will be judging you. So don't worry about it. There's plenty of judgment to go around. We are the best profession in the world for shooting ourselves in the foot. But don't shoot yourself in the foot. Be honest with yourself. None of these are better than any other. None of these are better as long as your motivation and your honesty is pure. You need to take a leap of faith. You need to get out of your comfort zone. That's what I said. You need to suffer. You need to be uncomfortable for you to experience something new. Because what you have now is your own creation. You're hooked into that creation. And what you have got now is something that you may often be afraid of letting go. Because there are two things in life that we strive for. One is acknowledgement as human beings. The other is something that is absolutely not pain. It's pleasure. By the third trimester of life, the fetus is able to determine the difference between pain and pleasure. You spend your entire life doing that. This feels good, I like it. This feels bad, I don't like it. And the beauty of developing a frontal lobe is that the frontal lobe also can tell you, this feels good, but it's not good for me. It can override that limbic system that says, because the limbic system likes a lot of stuff, and the frontal lobe knows that some of that stuff is no good. I don't have enough time to go through all the neurology at this moment in time. But this is the key. You need to let go of what you have to get something new. You need to discreate your creation so you can recreate it. This is where your faith comes in. And the number one thing that we want to look at for you is a thing we call confrontational tolerance. And that is not your ability to confront others and to be an asshole. Confrontational attitudes are not what we're talking about. Confrontational tolerance is your ability to be honest and truthful with yourself. And to take that honesty and your truth and tell others what your truth is. When I first became chiropractor many years ago, Renaissance was run by a man named Joe Felicia and a guy you might know called Guy Easy Reekman. And they used to have these canned reports that we did. We got this loose leaf and a book, and it told you exactly what to tell to your patient and how to speak to them. And it was like, I tried it once. And then I tried it twice. And then I got really sick. And then I realized that people weren't getting it because I wasn't talking to them about what was honest for me about chiropractic, where I was at that moment in time. And that shifts all the time based on my belief system, based on my experiences. So the way to increase your confrontational tolerance is experience an undeniable change in your perspective, to see something bigger than you are right now, to see something bigger than where your practice is right now. That is the way you change your confrontational tolerance. Be honest, be objective, be truthful, have a moral compass, and speak your truth. The most effective and efficient way to create a successful practice is by getting repeat business. Disneyland gets a 70% return. The best way to build your practice is have people come back, right? We know that. It's great if you get 100 new patients a month, but if you blow away 90 of them, you're doing something wrong. I would rather have 5 good new patients that choose to stay for something close to lifetime care than 50 patients that are not quite sure why they're there. Do you agree with that? Absolutely. In the business world, to make that work, it is 10% product and 90% service. The service you offer, what is your service? Chiropractic. It's not your vitamins, it's not your pillows, it's not the added value experience of having better water or better tea in your office. It's your service, it's your adjustment. That is 90% of your business model. You need to have a technique, a skill set that allows you to adapt to the patient load that you deal with. I had a man come into my office. He was 95 years old. He was referred to me by a dentist because he had fallen down, hit his face, and if you don't know by now, I do a lot of cranial work. So he came in. He was sitting in the waiting room one day, and in my office, if you're ever in the waiting room, it's a zoo. I mean a literal zoo. There are dogs. There are cats. There are little kids. There are older people. There are all these people running in and out. And he probably waited in the waiting room about a half hour that day. I tend to run a little behind. He came into the adjusting room, and he goes, Doc, you take kids and people, you take care of people from the cradle to the coffin. And he goes, you can use that line. And I said, thanks. I appreciate it. But it's about having the ability to really take care of people from the cradle to the coffin. The apparent ease with which someone performs is a direct reflection of how much practice and effort went into the preparation. How many people have ever trailed a chiropractor, gone into their office, watched them, walked around with them? And how many people have ever seen somebody who they thought was a master? It looks freaking easy, doesn't it? It looks unbelievably easy. They're just there. Do you know that mastery, or what's considered mastery, at the baseline level is someone who spent 10,000 hours perfecting their art? 10,000 hours perfecting that skill set. That's what makes you a master. I don't want to put down the miracles that we see. They're great. How many people here play golf? Anybody? Nobody? How many people here suck at golf? Come on. Exactly. And what gets you back? You get up to the 18th hole, it's a par 5, and you frickin' birdie it, right? You shot 120, but you birdie the par 5, you're going to come back. So you watch these guys play golf on TV, and it looks so easy. It's easy because they have hit thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of shots in every situation. It's not easy, it's their freaking job. They have put hours and hours into it. It's the same thing with you. I'm going to try and speed this up a little bit. 8 minutes. All right. So why? There's only one reason to start becoming a chiropractor. There's only one reason to actually be able to open up the world to chiropractic, and that is starting from the very beginning. The first 2 years of life are the most important, groundbreaking time that the nervous system develops. 80 to 90% of your gray matter and white matter are laid down and developed in the first 2 years of your life. You are setting down the precedents and the groundwork and the baseline for the nervous system for the rest of your life. Cognitive and motor development are starting to form. By age 2, you have 90% of your adult volume of all the gray matter and all the white matter that you're ever going to have. In the first year, your body is forming 1,000 to 100,000 synapses. Your brain is growing 2.5 to 3 times. Your cerebellum, the main computer center of your brain, the main computer is growing 240% in the first year. By age 2, 80 to 90%. By age 6, all your motor and sensory integration has come to form. Who you are today is the same person you were by age 6. That's who you are. That's how your nervous system develops. If I can make an impact into that nervous system in those first couple of years, then I have made an impact for the rest of your life. Even if I've only been able to adjust you for the first 2 years of your life, I've given you the greatest start possible. The dural system runs from the coccyx all the way up the spine, into the cranium, through the sutures of the infant's skull. It controls the tension. D.D. Palmer talked about it, tension in the nervous system. That is the ability for the nervous system to transmit impulses. It controls the movement of cerebrospinal fluid. That is the waste system that takes toxins out of the brain and central nervous system. That is the system that controls these 4 mechanisms of cranial bone motion that you saw on that second slide. Movement of the cranium is controlled by the tension of the dural system. You need a way to access that system. CSF is so powerful of finally finding it out. It removes it's temperature control, it's waste removal, nutrition, cranial bone motion, it's a protective barrier. It is the lymphatic system for the central nervous system. The lymphatic system, it cleans the central nervous system. And look at this. We believe that for every neurological disease that has an immune component to it, which is every frickin' disease you have, these vessels may play a major role. DeJournette, Sutherland, Upledger DeJournette graduated school in 1924. He's been saying that, well, not anymore because he's dead, but he said that for 65 plus years till he died in 1992. The CSF and lymphatic system. Toddlers diagnosed with autism at 2 years of age had a substantially greater amount of extra-axial cerebral spinal fluid by 12 months of age. The findings published say that we know that CSF is very important for brain health, and our data suggests that a large subset of kids, the fluid is not flowing properly. Because if you have a subluxation in the dural system, whether it be the sacrum, C1, C2, sphenobasalum, it stops the function of the dural system. Scientists then discovered, they're so smart, 2017, it took them to 2017, that CSF acted as a crucial filtration system for byproducts of brain metabolism. The greater amount of CSF at 6 months was associated with poorer gross motor skills, such as head and limb control. This study was in 2017. What did it tell us? It tells us there's an alteration in distribution of CSF that we can see on MRIs as early as 6 months of age. They found that, listen to this, that increased CSF predicted with nearly a 70% accuracy which babies would later be diagnosed with autism. What is the autism rate now? 1 in 48? By tomorrow it'll be 1 in 35. You know what it was in 1981 I graduated? 1 in 2,500. You think shit's happening out there? CSF flow may have a downstream effect on the developing brain. So when we look at Heidi's research and we try and figure out why when we adjust somebody, they can see better, they can hear better, they can walk. Here's a good reason. Here's a good reason. CSF affects the developing brain. It brings nutrients to the brain. Where is 80% of your central nervous system located? In your brain. Bless you. CSF also helps with cranial bone remodeling. So the subluxation that we deal with, the subluxation that we see, causes changes in blood flow, changes in quality and quantity and speed of nerve impulses, changes cerebral spinal fluid followed by dural meningeal compression or stretching, changes brain temperature, creates nutrient deficiency, creates waste and toxic buildup, lowers the adaptive threshold of the body, decreases the all-functional capability of the nervous system to respond to stress. Not a big deal. What the hell? Just leave it. DeJournette, 1967, subluxation of the atlas occipital region, atlas axis area will cause the primary respiratory mechanism to distort and cause abnormal stress of the meningeal system. It's the dural meningeal system in the pediatric practice that you're dealing with. 99 and 9/10% of the subluxation that you're seeing in the pediatric practice are not compression injuries to the nerve, they are traction injuries. By too much stress in the dural meningeal system, causing too much tension in the nervous system, causing aberrant neurological input, and inability for the nerves to transmit impulses in the correct way when they're too tight. Alf Brigg, an adverse mechanical tension in the central nervous system, says traction on your nerve causes immediate pathophysiological changes in that nerve root, quicker and faster than a nerve root compression. If there is traumatization of the suboccipital structures, it causes reduced capacity to absorb stress later in life. It's as simple as that. The only true subluxation you ever see must be in a child prior to the age of 7. If that subluxation goes uncorrected, it becomes a primary source of stimulus through life. Do you understand what that's saying? That your reactivity, that subluxation makes you compensate from the moment it occurs, and if it is not removed, you will compensate for that for the rest of your life. That's a long time. It's a long time. That's true, hopefully. It's quality, not quantity, right? Though at my age, I'm starting to hope it's a little bit of quantity. Anyway, what you have to do is you have to reprogram the system by positive input, creating new memory priorities, fortifying the body's reserves. What happens is the brain subluxates from lower brain centers, from the cerebellum, to the midbrain, sphenobasalum, to the cortical regions. If that subluxation pattern is not resolved, then the body will create compensatory changes in the brain. So if the cerebellum, which is your main feeding mechanism, which is basically your central computer, isn't working correctly, it feeds aberrant information to the rest of the brain. If the limbic system is overworking, it's going to distort the emotional capability and create fear, anxiety, and fight or flight states. And if you don't call in your frontal cortex, you will make stupid friggin' decisions for the rest of your life. Anybody know anybody who makes stupid decisions for the rest of their life? I'm going to skip that one. To change these patterns, the difference is you need a technique that creates a theta state as well. Delta states, or what we call conscious states, these conscious states do not only change patterns, they're temporary changes of the pattern. You have to create a theta state inside the brain to actually change it. Conscious delta states will motivate you, but will not make a permanent impact. So you need a technique that is available to access the theta brainwave patterns to change the nervous system. You must experience a neurological and emotional shift before making a behavioral change that is sustainable. Your innate is pure and works to maintain the body in existence. It knows what is needed. It strives to create a healthy environment. The innate holds no judgments regarding right and wrong. Its job is to adapt to the best of its ability with the tools given to it to keep the body alive and in optimum function. The limitations simply arise when interference with the optimum function is present or its baseline adaptability, access to the materials it needs, nutrition, and removal of waste, which comes from the cerebral spinal fluid, are not available. The adjustment has the ability to trigger higher thought processes. We talk about Maslow's hierarchy, and we talk about getting to that yellow, that self-actualization, a self-motivated practice. The adjustment can be the actualized point of your practice. Think about this, and I'm running a little over. I'm sorry if you get really hungry. I'll buy you lunch if you can find me. It's not about charts. It's not just about the philosophy. It's not about marketing. Imagine if you could deliver an adjustment that the internal mechanism inside that human being and that child goes into the memory banks by creating enough positive afferent impulse that changes their aberrant neurological pattern and drives them to come into your office. What if you had a child-driven practice? In other words, the adjustment impacts the child's nervous system so they drag their parents to see you. 23-month-old kid can't walk, can't talk, comes into my office, unable to walk and talk. Start to adjust him. 3 weeks into adjusting him, his mom brings him in. They weren't scheduled. I said, Matthew said he wanted to come in. I said, how do you know? Matthew can't walk and talk. She goes, Matthew, tell Dr. Rosen. Matthew takes his finger, puts it inside his mouth, and goes, Dr. Rosen. He drove them to the office. Not physically, emotionally drove them to the office. Imagine if you had kids who did that. Mom, I need to get adjusted. I'm not leaving the house till what if they did that? I'm not leaving the house till I get adjusted. You can bring me to the chiropractor before we go. Huh? Imagine how powerful that would be, right? I'm not eating my broccoli till I go to the chiropractor. If you can make an adjustment that stimulates the child's nervous system that wants to come to the office, you will never have to market. You will never have to do anything. You will have to maintain integrity within your philosophy, integrity within your technique. You will have to do that. You will have to do that. If you do not have a technique in your current practice paradigm that affects the movement of CSF and the dermal system, then you're not being as effective as you can be in creating optimal environment for your patient's nervous system and healing. One plug before I go. If you want a technique that does that, come to my table. Sorry I ran over. Thank you very much. As always, Austin, to be here. If you want to talk to me, I'll be around. Thank you.
Dr. Marty Rosen.